Festival of the Arts, Grand Rapids, One Perspective. My name is Gina Bivens, and I was a longtime volunteer with the Festival of the Arts, Grand Rapids. I did not attend Festival of the Arts the first time it was held on the plaza. I was busy that weekend delivering my first child. Both Fred, my husband, and I were into the arts, so started attending the second year and every year after that. In the mid 1970s, St. Andrew's Cathedral started a food booth under the guidance of Simon and Irma Aguilar. Fred and I volunteered. At about the same time, our friend Johan Vandertol, who volunteered on the graphics committee, knew we did screen printing and got us involved helping with graphics by the end of the 1970s. The rest is this history. Let's go back to the beginning of the festival on the plaza. La Grande Vitesse, the creative work of Alexander Calder, was assembled on Vandenberg Center Plaza, now commonly known as Calder Plaza, in 1969. This third photo in color is much more recent, as can be told by the to the right, the River House building. The first festival on the plaza was in 1970. Alexander gave this sunny logo to the group of people that brought the Stabile to Grand Rapids. It became the logo of Festival. Decades later, a friend asked, why does Festival continue to use a 70s style logo? Why not update it? My answer was, because it was a gift from Calder. But I really think some of us were superstitious that it brought good vibes. Here is the cover from the 50th anniversary in 2019. And I offer that because inside is a map of Festival. On the right-hand page are the areas where Festival started. You can see the plaza. There is a drawing of the Calder Stabile, and there was artisan tents and other activities on the plaza. And then soon the parking ramp for Old Kent Bank, now Fifth Third, opened up for activities. And then Ottawa Avenue, and it extended down to Monroe, which is now Monroe Center. The Circle Stage, which is part of Ecliptic Maya Lin sculpture, the Grand Rapids Art Museum, and the Kendall College, which is in the old Federal Building on Division. Here is a official publication of the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce from 1974, and it says what I believed from the beginning of my involvement. Festival is for people. It was for all people. It was a gift to the community. No paid staff, albeit some office help from the Arts Council. All were welcome, family friendly, no fee to attend. The 1980 festival souvenir guide cover is full of fun. It was designed by Bob Ashley, who graduated from Kendall School of Design. At one time, there was a balloon ascension from Anabun Park that flew over the plaza, and that's indicated in the upper right. What do you see? What memories does this bring to mind? Inside is stated 38 committees with about 100 volunteer members put together our annual Rite of Spring, organizing operations and soliciting supplies. They also recruit an additional 1,000 volunteers to work in individual areas during the 3 days. These people donate time and hard work. In 1980, here's a photo of the massed bands. For years, massed marching bands opened festival at noon on the first Friday of June, right after the sirens ended. Schools were not yet out, so band directors were able to bring their marching bands down. Also, for several years, there was a playground sculpture competition. Some of them are still around town. This one is Lori's Button and is located at the north end of Anabawan Park on the west bank of the Grand River, outside the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum. No, we cannot talk about festival without talking about the culinary arts. These are some of the signs created by Laura and Gordon Goodrich, early co-chair of the graphics committee. The signs were on the plaza, and on each one was a number which coincided with the number on a food booth. The food booths were run by area nonprofits, churches, and ethnic organizations. Here's an album cover from a Polish band. It was taken at Festival 82. Many ethnic groups showed their pride and culture performing at Festival. Why the first weekend in June? Local meteorologists figured out that the weather was pretty good then, although this picture with Fred Bivens and John Dupre indicates otherwise. In 1983, the Bivens family started printing festival flags in our backyard and hanging them to dry on clothesline. Because in 1983, Norma Brink and Lee Molnix were co-chairs of the event, and Lee asked Fred if he could turn the cover design they had for their program into a flag. Yes, was the answer. We did it on a picnic table in our backyard. The ink, a textile, air dried. Fred bent conduit that would attach to city lampposts to hang the flags on. The graphics committee also put them around the plaza on tents. And they all had to be hemmed so they would not fray during the event. Two large tents accommodated artists who brought their creations to festival to sell. The rule was that they had to live in Kent County and the 7 contiguous counties. The same rule applied to food booths and performers. It has always amazed me how much talent is in this small section of West Michigan. At that time, the art tents were chaired by Tom and Lynn O'Rourke, Lynn being a talented paper collage artist and Tom a videographer. They would go on to chair the photography exhibit that, for a time, was separate from the visual arts exhibit. Tom and Lynn are being interviewed here by TV8. 1985 was a big wake-up call for the Bivens family. Fred was tapped to co-chair the event with Kat Timmermanis. Co-chairs made a 3-year commitment, one as apprentices or trainees, one as chair, and a third as advisor. Fred actually bought us an answering machine due to the volume of phone calls he anticipated. There were a lot of meetings too. And in 1986, our three kids were in three different schools, which added to the chaos. I need to say that Fred's employer, Diesel Equipment Division of General Motors, and Kat's employer, Wyoming Public Schools, where she was an art teacher, were very supportive. Diane Casey and Rick David followed Fred and Kat. Diane and Rick had both passed away. Diane was honored posthumously for her years of service and effusive personality by having the Diane Casey Spirit of Festival Award presented in future years in her name. I humbly accepted the award one year, as did Fred in another. So many great friends were made, including Hito Akahi, who was a delight to be around and had an unmatched energy level. He was a master at origami. When in charge of graphics, I made many banners. I would set up my sewing machine in the living room so I would have room to maneuver the large banners. We would cut the letters and images with a hot knife to cauterize the edges, and then sew them. Many times we would have to grommet the corners. Lots of banging outside. They were made out of nylon and they lasted many years. We also made food booth banners. There was always something needing to be done. Sometimes the request didn't get to us before the event, and we had a corner of headquarters where we would do last minute signs. Sometimes the machine argued with us. Note the 87. Every year the date had to be changed on the banner. But this picture is really of the Star Truck. There were many community partners over the years, and Star Truck Rentals was one of them. John S. Hyatt and Associates was an amazing partnership, really right up until the last year, 2024. Here are some photos of other partnerships and sponsors. This is for the kids paint in. Meyer sponsoring the Circle stage. We were offered sponsorships several times by national brands, but chose to stay somewhat local, with Meyer, of course, being headquartered in Walker, Michigan, um, just to keep that feel of what West Michigan had to offer. Here's a photo of Visual Arts Awards presentation. Many community members and businesses, as well as the city and county, gave awards and made purchases. More screen printing of flags. This was done at the Fred Sauer Window Center on Dewey Northwest. The person on the right with the red Converse high tops is my son David. This festival flag from 1988 was designed by Roger Timmermanis. City sponsorship meant the use of City Hall for headquarters. Here are Mark and Annie as cool. Although Annie's shirt says food, they, like so many others, worked on several committees each year. And you can see musical instruments stored, which was also the use of the headquarters. There were all sorts of activities over the weekend. They were free, although at printmaking you could purchase a t-shirt to print on, but also could bring your own. And paper was available if you just wanted to print on paper. Glue-in and paint-in, which is shown here, were for kids. They were a parent-free zone. My kids got an early start volunteering at these activities. For years, glue-in had an abundance of wood donated by local furniture factories. Fred and I had the rule that if you make it, you carry it. So the creations of our kids were of a reasonable size. Here's some more pictures of kids and a volunteer on the right at the kids' paint in. And no adult kibitzing. Here is the adult paint in. For several years, this was an area, it was sponsored by Hayworth, and age 13 and older could enjoy painting, just like the kids. I don't know if it had a rule of no kids kibitzing though. Here's Tommy Hyde at the bike corral. For years with his wife Lisa and daughter Rochelle, they sponsored this and they camped out for the weekend in a trailer that they used as their headquarters. Alternative transportation was encouraged with the bike corral option, a place to put your bike in safety while you enjoyed the festival. And the promotion of taking the bus was also important. Stage crews were another area. Festival brats, the children of committee chair, got their start. Here is a group waiting for a changeout. They moved chairs, tables, music stands, risers, microphones, whatever was needed to get the stage ready for the next group, or to remove what the last group had used. I see one of the Parseca boys in this shot. Here's a shot of my daughter Eliza, about 9 years old, putting clothespins on music stands so the musicians can hold their music in place if a breeze comes up. This is another shot of the Calder stage, and this is Ted Zhao. He is either an MC, he has a name tag on, so I'm guessing he is MCing at this time, but he also brought different groups down to entertain. Here's some of the stages that were used over the years. The Calder stage may have been the showpiece or the largest one, so larger groups used it, but there were plenty of wonderful little stages, smaller at least than Calder. Here's one on the Showmobile at Lion Street. A dance troupe dancing on Calder stage, 1987. And high kickers on a Showmobile. A ballet troupe on Calder stage. The surface is called marley, and that was put down because it helped the dancers. It was not slick. In 1995, the art train paid a visit to Grand Rapids during the festival weekend. Here is the Calder stage with the gay men's choir, and a stage at Lion in Ottawa, and I wish I knew which group this is, but I don't. I chaired the event in 1991 with Randy Hoekstra, the best co-chair ever. The year we were in training, John Buckley and Barb Perseca had a competition to pick the poster. That was often the case of how the poster was uh, chosen. When the voting was done, Randy and I realized we both had been voting for a poster that did not get the nod. The same one. So, 1 year early, we had our poster, this op art piece that harkened back to our college days. All that had to be changed was the dates. In this picture from 1995 shows my co-chair Randy, the second from the left, right. For years, we talked about a cookbook. In 1991, we got it done. Two more were done, with the last being in 2008. Volunteers were encouraged to submit a favorite recipe, as were food booths. Here's a recipe for vegetable stir fry from the Tam Quan Temple, which was for many years on the south side of the plaza, right by the art sales tent. I ate many delicious meals from them. Humor was an important part of being able to put on an event as large as festival. This is a recipe for boiled water from Tom Drosty, the bathroom's chair. He procured the porta-johns and made sure they were clean. So very important. Here's a Calder Plaza crowd. See the flags on the tents? It's inside the art sales tent. And a little more. Maybe one of you owns one of these beautiful glass plate flowers that is showing on the right. This artist was there for many years, and there's some jewelry. The West Michigan Woodturners Guild was uh, active in the art tent for many years. A number of them combined their work and had it for sale festival weekend. And at one time, there were art demonstrations right outside the art tent. Later, they were in a separate tent, but this is from 1995, and my sister, Rita Shields, a potter, is demonstrating her throwing skills here. Now, as if we didn't have enough going on, for several years we added a parade to all the other activities going on. We also a few times entered the celebration on the Grand Parade. That was usually in September. And here's a festival entry into the festival parade. Here's a photo of a photographer taking a picture of a photographer in 1988. But here are food booth headquarters. The numbers are being handed out, and somebody's putting together the pitch-ins. We always were very aware of the amount of trash that could be generated by all the food booths and all the other activities. So there was a cleanup committee that made sure that the place was kept clean. 1995, the hanging of the banner on the county building. That is something I would never have done. Just frightens me to look at it. And here's part of the crowd, an information booth on the left. The design on the Festival 95 banner was on the original banners that the Goodriches made, and they were painted onto canvas panels, which were extremely heavy. These nylon banners were so much lighter. And we just included them in honor of all the work that the Goodriches did and continuity. This is another photo from 1995 with this Calder stage audience and the art sales tents. I wish I knew who was on stage because they have drawn a crowd. I would like to think that it's a shot of the artists receiving their awards, but here is Fred Bivens, who for more years than I remember was the chair of the Visual Arts Committee, at least 25. In this photograph, he's giving out awards on Calder Stage. Our daughter Chris chaired with him and is to his right, waving to the crowd in the black t-shirt. And to the right of her is Kat Timmermanis, who helped on that always. She was always in the mix. Fred chaired it when the Federal Building was the Art Museum and on until it was no more. It is one thing to play music in front of family and classmates at a school concert. It is another to play in front of a crowd of strangers. And if on Calder Stage, it might be on GR TV. Here's a picture of the Youth Symphony playing on Calder Stage in 2024, not knowing this would be the last one. My niece Abby, who is in this picture, was disappointed she would not be able to perform at Festival her senior year. Well-known local guitar player, folk singer, songwriter Ralston Bowles, he wrote a song for Festival. Here he's performing on Calder Stage. Some street shots were on Otto Avenue looking south from Lyon Street. Here's a photo of the Kennewa Hills Band Boosters. Look at all the kids from the band working in the booth. Here's Otto Avenue at Monroe Center. One of the showmobile stages is straight ahead with the slanted roof to it. Madcap Coffee is on the left. All the food booths are lined up, and some building is either being renovated or built on the right-hand side. There's Ottawa Avenue north of Lyon Street. There's the Islamic Center food booth. Steepletown Neighborhood Services offered a food booth. There's a woman or a man in a wheelchair on the right, and I point that out only because one of the things that we felt was very important was handicap services. Judy Kuipers, for most of the years that I can remember, uh, was in charge of handicap services. We had special parking area for them, and there was a place where they could go. Uh, Most of the stages had a tent where they could go under and get out of the sun. Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church was a mainstay of the food booths. Many came and went, but the Greeks always found enough people to staff their booth and grills for the weekend. They almost always sold out before Bethel Pentecostal Choir closed out Calder Stage on Sunday afternoon. For a time in the late 70s and early 80s, St. Andrew's food booth and the Greek booths were next to each other in the Fifth Third parking lot. Both provided several co-chairs to the overarching event, including Sam Affandoulas, who will always be Mr. Festival. Here's a picture of Sam and his lovely, lovely wife, Tina Affandoulas. For those who don't know, they were owners of the Glass Hut, which was a local hamburger quick food place. In 2003, I was chairing hospitality with Robert Aguilar and Chef Oliver Hale. Hospitality provided food and beverages for volunteers. I put up a sign, "Your mother doesn't work here. Clean up after yourself." But quickly realized what a mistake that was because after being involved for so long, by now at least 25 years, and because it was a festival family, many of the kids and some of the young adults called me mom. The sign came down, but they got the message. And another festival flag printing at the Fred Sauer Window Center in 2005. We continued the tradition, but it should be said that what happened to all those flags? Well, they were taken down after festival and folded up, and then at our after festival party, they were given to co-chairs of committees so they would have a souvenir. This is Karen Hunter and I when we co-chaired art sales. I do not remember what year this happened, but at a general meeting in November, it was announced that the chair of that committee would not be returning. I had helped out in the past with jurying artists and spent 1 year on call. So to my surprise, I raised my hand and said, "I'll do it." Karen, to her credit, said, "If Gina's doing it, I will do it with her." It was great working with Karen. Others joined us over the years as we went from 2 tents on the plaza to a white tent village. All types of arts were featured over the years: music, visual, storytelling, dance, and as seen here, literary arts, as were published in On the Town, the Festival Literary Awards. I'm not sure what was going on here. I do think that Ted Zhao, who was shown earlier, had something to do with it, but we had hula hoops and we had other things going on the back side of the city county complex. Plain Air had a place one year. There were artists stationed around downtown and along the river painting, and they were later turned in and juried, and the show hung at the Grand Valley Artists Gallery. Another thing that happened in the later years was Typewriter 101. People were encouraged to write stories, write poetry, or try to do typewriter art down at Festival. It was sponsored by the Avid Typewriters of West Michigan. Finding a place to host the visual arts exhibit was challenging some years. Several years it was spread out, and one year it included Muse Gallery on Leonard, Palate on Fulton, Gallery 106 on Division, Frames Unlimited North and South, Madcap Coffee, the Grand Rapids African American Museum and Archives, and Grand Valley Artists. And a thank you to all of them. This year it was at UICA, and the picture was taken from a balcony above the goings on. We also provided a reception for the artists and their friends and family at the opening of the show, and that's what you see at the long tables. Here's a picture of Muse Gallery on West Leonard. Grand River Art was in there. There was a sponsor for Grand River Art and one year 6th Street Art. DeVos Place became its home in the end. It shared space with youth art. It was always a lot of work getting it all together. There was drop-off at Hyatt and Associates on Alpine. The jurying was done there. Then it was carefully, safely packed up to be delivered by a Hyatt truck. Then the show got hung. Here's the final set of jurors for 2024. In 2024, over $17,000 was given out to artists. Some were outright cash awards, others were purchase awards. Much art by local artists is hanging in West Michigan homes and businesses, setting on mantels and tables because of this over 5 decades tradition. I leave you with this image of what we lost when the curtains closed on the challenging but incredible event. This next generation has lost the opportunity to make connections with people who came together for good of the whole because of art. Festival is people. This is an image of 3 generations of people who worked on Festival. My daughter Eliza on the right, Kat Timmermanis to the left of her, my grandson Elliot, who at 9 was sure he would someday chair the whole thing, and myself.